So this is about my 8th year doing fantasy, and I finally started to inform myself on the concept of the dead zone last year. So it's defined as about from round 4 to, I'm going to say, round 8, because round 9 I would say is when you start to find less starters, you see more of backups or committee players being taken. And the qualifications I've seen described is typically they have kind of a poor resume, but you're interested because they have a higher potential workload than some of the other players that you would have taken. So last year that would have been a Mike Davis. He only had one good fantasy season with Carolina, and then he goes to Atlanta. He looks like the main guy, and you want to take a chance on him here because you think he'll have the highest chance of volume. And then usually other players that go in this area are players in committees or rookies because of the uncertainty as to their role. And what I found from last year's data, I'm looking at where they were drafted in my 10-man PPR league and where they finished per Fantasy Pros' PPR data. And I'm going to look at whether they outperformed where they were drafted, whether they were a push, which is, I would say, around 3 to 5 spots of where they were drafted would be like you were happy with that pick in retrospect. And then if they outperformed, that means they did much better than where they were drafted. So this list here, starting from the 4th, you have like Miles Sanders did not reach his ADP. DeAndre Swift reached his by a couple, but it wasn't an incredible jump. David Montgomery, pretty much you got him where you should have. Josh Jacobs outperformed his. He was almost a top 10 in PPR. Mike Davis was a big flop. Myles Gaskin, at first I thought he was a bit of a disappointment, but when you look at him in PPR, he was about a push. Kareem Hunt, too hurt, I think. Did not reach it. Gus Edwards, I drafted out for the season. Chase Edmonds, disappointed. Raheem Mostert is always hurt. Darrell Henderson did about what was expected. Damien Harris, huge success. Devin Singletary, huge success. Leonard Fournette, one of the breakout running backs. Trey Sermon, drafted by me, huge flop out of the San Francisco offense. I expected better. And then Javonte Williams, huge breakout. So what I found is, out of these guys, 16 of these guys I picked, about 7 of them underperformed their ADP, 4 was about a push, and 5 overperformed. So for the most part, if you took a chance here, you got almost 50-50, I guess. It's not bad. And then the players who were outside the dead zone who ended up performing, you missed out if you didn't get James Conner, finished as RB5 in PPR. Melvin Gordon, who I drafted and let go too soon, performed like close enough to Javonte. A.J. Dillon, timeshare also, was close and started seeing more touches than Aaron Jones towards the end. Tony Pollard, decent season for the round he was taken. So when you look at this year, guys that I think will go around that 4th to 8th round, we're looking at Zeke for age and the possibility that Pollard takes more snaps. David Montgomery is a guy that's classically in this 4th, 5th round area. Bad offense this year, possibly, in a committee with Herbert. Travis Etienne, rookie last year, coming off an injury, has James Robinson looming. Cam Akers, that injury, and now you have Sean McVay saying that he believes in Darrell Henderson as a starter. Yikes. Breece Hall, rookie. Rookies usually drafted in this range. Antonio Gibson, concerns about them drafting Brian Robinson. J.D. McKissick stuck around, and he is often hurt. He's already dealing with a hamstring. Josh Jacobs, if you're not a fan of his, you would say that he got by mostly on volume last year. Elijah Mitchell, a lot of injuries, and there's a question of, is he that guy again for San Francisco this year? J.K. Dobbins, there's always a question of who's the number 1 for Baltimore. If they're going back to a run offense, you want him, but he's coming off the injury. A.J. Dillon will probably be in this range again. Miles Sanders, his stock didn't rise much after a poor season. Clyde, if he is the guy, running backs with Patrick Mahomes average about 14 points a game from what I saw. So you have Darrell Williams being gone. So there's a possibility for him to retake that number one job. And then also, we're going to probably see Kareem Hunt in here again. Should he stick with the Browns? If he goes somewhere else, he may have a higher potential. Damien Harris, there's a little bit of concerns now with Ramondre Stevenson rising up. And you could argue he got by volume and touchdowns. Devin Singletary, if you have any questions about James Cook and Zach Moss, I'm not really worried about him. Melvin Gordon saying that they're going to split 50-50 almost this season. The head coach Hackett saying also there's going to be a snap count on these guys. A little concerning, but if you want the value, it sounds like you want Melvin Gordon in this range again. He was a steal last year. Cordero Patterson probably going to end up here, even though he was a surprise, because a lot of people are doubting whether he can repeat that performance. And, new running back drafted. They brought a few guys in. The two Seattle running backs, Walker and Penny, which one is going to be the main guy in what will probably be a run-heavy offense. And then Chase Edmonds. Miami has a lot of different guys. Their head coach, McDaniel, comes from the San Francisco system where they rotate guys. So, he could be a value, but we don't know who comes out there out of Gaskin, Sony, and et cetera, et cetera. From the research by J.J. Zacharias, I forget the pronunciation, but he said on the Late Round podcast that hit rates of these type of guys in the dead zone are going to decline in the back of round 3. So he's basically saying that the ceiling that you get on these guys is not very high. You can find the same ceiling in round 7. They may have a high floor, but if you want to go for ceiling, you might want to take a receiver or a rookie or something. And a lot of the times these guys are elevated based on need to these higher, fourth, mid rounds because of need rather than taking a safer receiver. That was the case with Mike Davis last year. You weren't really thrilled with him. There was questions of whether he could be a starter, but there was just enough intrigue of, not much competition in Atlanta to take a chance on him.